The Northern Shield 7. I, Colonel Dmitry Lebedev, Senior Inspector of the Main Directorate of the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation, had always considered myself a rational man. Shamanic ravings, polar legends, even the darkest rumors about secret installations, none of them had ever touched me. The order came suddenly. Object, Northern Shield 7, a long-abandoned underground missile complex on the desolate shore of the East Siberian Sea, 140 kilometers from the nearest 𝐒𝐞𝐯 settlement, almost at the pole itself. 40 years earlier, it had been sealed by personal order of the General Secretary. No autopsy protocols, no reports, only the stamp Incident Omega and a terse resolution: do not open, never, under threat of tribunal. With me flew two men. Senior Lieutenant Sokolov, a sturdy, taciturn Siberian, and Private Shevchenko, a young Ukrainian from near Kharkiv who had been transferred north only 6 months earlier. The Mi-8 helicopter shuddered in the icy blizzard as though it were a living thing that sensed disaster. Beyond the porthole, white void merged with black sky. Even the engines roared dully, as if afraid to wake what slept beneath the ice. When the concrete dome, half buried in snow and resembling a rotten skull, emerged from the whiteout, I felt the first real premonition. Not fear, premonition, as though the Arctic itself, ancient and indifferent, had whispered in my ear, "You are too late." We cut through the titanium plates of the entrance with a plasma torch. The Soviet-era lead seals snapped with a dry crack. From within poured a cold that was not mere frost. It was alive, hungry. It gnawed beneath our suits, seeking the warmth of the soul rather than the body. The descent down the metal staircase lasted an eternity. Each level revealed new scenes of hell preserved in ice. On sublevel -2, we found the first. Soldiers and technicians stood, sat, lay, frozen in the exact postures in which death had taken them. Their faces were twisted not by pain, but by something infinitely greater. Cosmic, inhuman horror. Eyes gouged out by rime, mouths torn open in a silent scream that the ice had preserved forever. Some still clutched weapons, others icons or photographs of their wives. One technician had frozen with both hands pressed to his ears, as if trying to block a sound that had already burrowed into his skull. On sub-level -4, it grew worse. Here the men had begun tearing off their clothes. Naked bodies coated in crusts of ice smiled, widely, far too widely. In the command center, among dead consoles and darkened screens, we found him, Chief Engineer Colonel Vyacheslav Orlov. He sat at the table, his right hand still gripping an old Soviet electronics dictaphone. The batteries had long since died, but the cassette inside was intact. Shevchenko's trembling hands inserted fresh ones. We pressed play. Orlov's voice, hoarse, weary, yet still human, filled the dead air. Recording 1, March 17, 1984, 0314 local. Radar has detected a large object drifting toward the shore, length approximately 200 meters, shape too regular for an iceberg. Surface temperature -94 degrees, moving against current and wind. Order from Moscow, observe, do not approach. 3:47. The object is singing. I hear it inside my head. A low, vibrating hum. 4:20. Sent out a reconnaissance team. Senior Lieutenant Gromov, Sergeant Vereshchagin, and 2 technicians. They went to the shore with binoculars and a radio. A pause. Static. Orlov drew a deep breath. Recording 2, 5:05. First report from Gromov. His voice is shaking like a boy's. Comrade Colonel, there are people standing on the ice floe, naked, only loincloths of some kind of hide, standing barefoot on the ice, faces blue as dead ice. Their eyes are glowing. They do not blink. One raised his hand and pointed straight at the base. I feel cold inside my skull. 5:12. Second report. Gromov is almost screaming. They are not breathing. The snow around them is turning black. They are singing. I hear it inside, like bones grinding against bones. 5:18. Contact lost. The last thing we heard was a shriek. Ice sorcerers! They serve him! The white worm is awakening. Orlov fell silent. Then he spoke lower, almost in a whisper, as though afraid the walls might hear. I remembered. The old 𝐒𝐿𝐄 who worked here in 79 used to tell legends by the fire. They called the entity the White Worm, Relim Shikorth. According to their myths, it has slept beneath the ice since the time when Earth was still hot vapor and the stars were only being born. It came from outside, from the black abyss beyond our world. Devourer of heat, lord of eternal winter. The 𝐒𝐿𝐄 said that long ago their ancestor shamans tried to make a pact with it. Those who gave up their warmth and souls became its ice sorcerers. They walk naked through polar night, feeling no cold because they themselves are cold. They lure the living so that they too may become part of him. If the white worm awakens, the entire north will die. Not merely freeze, it will become part of his body. And then nothing living will ever exist here again. Orlov's voice broke. Recording 3, 6:40. The flow has reached the shore. Temperature in the complex is dropping 4 degrees per minute. Some men are stripping and laughing. They say they feel hot. Others simply sit down and smile while their eyes turn to ice. I can hear something enormous crawling through the ventilation shafts, segments scraping against metal. 7:15. They are already inside. The ice sorcerers. I saw one through the periscope. Tall. Blue. Eyes like fissures in a glacier. It walked down the corridor of sub-level -5, touching the walls. Behind it, new ice grew like living flesh. Final recording. I do not know how much longer I can hold on. Seal us in. For the love of God, seal us in and forget. Never, never open it again. It is calling. The dictaphone clicked and fell silent. In the silence, we heard it again. The same low, vibrating sound from the depths, as though a gigantic segmented body were slowly sliding across ice. We ran for the staircase, but the ice was already growing before our eyes, living, pulsing, crawling upward along the walls. It felt warm to the touch, warm as living flesh. On the penultimate level, we saw him. The ice sorcerer. He stood at the end of the corridor, unnaturally tall and thin, almost 2.5 meters. His skin was blue-black, covered in frost patterns like ancient runes. He wore only a loincloth made of something that had once been human skin. Long white hair hung in icicles. His eyes were 2 fissures pouring forth a red, lifeless light. He did not breathe. He simply watched. Sokolov raised his rifle and fired a burst. The bullet sank into the sorcerer's body, but instead of blood, a cloud of freezing vapor poured from the wounds. The creature smiled slowly, far too widely, splitting the corners of its mouth to the ears. It stepped forward. Shevchenko screamed and fired. The sorcerer raised a hand. Thin ice needles shot from its fingers and pierced the private's chest. Shevchenko froze in place, his body instantly coated with rime. His eyes bulged, his mouth opened in a silent scream of horror. He fell like a glass statue and shattered into 1,000 glittering fragments. Sokolov turned to run. The sorcerer merely touched his shoulder. The lieutenant stopped, his face twisted, not in pain, but in comprehension of something so vast and ancient that the mind could not endure it. He began to laugh. He laughed until his skin turned black from frost, then collapsed and lay there, still smiling at the ceiling. I stood alone. The sorcerer turned to me. Its eyes glowed. Slowly, almost solemnly, it extended its hand and touched my forehead. At that instant, my mind exploded. A kaleidoscope of torn, inhuman images flooded my consciousness like millions of shards from a shattered mirror, each reflecting the impossible. I saw the flow, not mere ice, but a living, pulsating egg carved from the matter of another world. Inside it writhed segments as huge as mountain ranges, and eyes, thousands of eyes gazing through space and time. The flow drifted not across the sea, but through the black cosmic abyss where the stars were dead and cold, and space itself bent at non-Euclidean angles. Then came fragments of 𝐒𝐈𝐄𝐈𝐄𝐈𝐿's native world, blinding, ragged visions of endless ice plains beneath a sky that held no sun, only black stars radiating darkness instead of light. Colossal cities of transparent, living ice, towers that twisted into shapes inaccessible to the human eye, angles that were simultaneously inside and outside. Along the streets crawled titanic white worms feeding on the last warmth of dying stars. And at the center of everything, 𝐒𝐈𝐄𝐈𝐄𝐈𝐿 itself, enormous, segmented, its maw filled with blades of ice, slumbering in the heart of a frozen planet where time flowed backward and life was merely a brief insult to eternal cold. And finally, the rituals of the ice sorcerers, chaotic, bloody visions, naked blue figures standing in a circle carved into the ice. They sang in a language that burst eardrums, a low, vibrating hum from which warmth poured out of victims' bodies. Men bound to altars of human skin screamed while the sorcerers touched their foreheads, exactly as this one now touched mine. Heat erupted from them in jets of steam, and their bodies became new ice statues with smiles frozen on their faces. I saw the sorcerers dancing around the flow, plunging their fingers into it to feed its souls. I saw them leading caravans of freezing wanderers deeper into darkness, promising eternity in the embrace of the white worm. I saw one of them, once a man, tear open his own chest and draw out a crystal of pure cold to place it in the heart of a new convert. The images tore, overlapped, burned my reason like acid. I screamed, but no sound came. I saw my own soul cracking like ice beneath boots. I understood everything, and in that understanding there was no salvation, only acceptance. The sorcerer withdrew its hand. I did not die, I changed. Now I understand. The white worm does not need to kill everyone at once. It needs servants, new ice sorcerers. I follow it, deeper, to where 𝐒𝐈𝐄𝐈𝐄𝐈𝐿 sleeps. Cold is mercy, ice is eternity, and I already hear him singing. I was the last man to descend into Northern Shield 7, and the first who will never leave, because now I belong to him.